welcome Tumbers, I mean Tennos. This is the Alchemist frame, Lavos. Now that's my intro. I know you're not here to see a long introduction of this frame, so let's get this thing started. I've spent a couple of hours getting to know this frame, investing some former, platinum, and time to give you the best guide I can create for Lavos. Okay, I said enough with any introduction. So the first important thing you need to know about the Alchemist frame is he has no energy pool, meaning, there's no point in putting primed flow or any energy mods in this frame. He uses a cooldown mechanic, and every time you cast an ability, you will need to wait for a couple of seconds before you can cast it. I know this is bothersome since looking at his skills, the cooldown of each ability will take long, especially his fourth ability, but don't worry, as he a trick hidden on his vials to lower these ability cooldowns. Another thing that you should know is his passive ability allows you to be immune with any status effects for 10 seconds. You can activate this by picking up energy, and the universal orbs converted by your third ability. Now, Valence Block, the name of the passive ability allows you to be immune against any status effects, including those pesky knockdowns and knockbacks for 10 seconds. The duration may sound a bit short, but it's reliable since you can constantly convert universal orbs with your third ability, given that you have the right build for this frame. Also, you should know about his other passive ability called Special Casting. While holding down one ability key, you can imbue a primary elemental damage type which you can use on your next ability cast. His first will let you imbue Toxin, his second ability is Cold, his third is Electric, while holding his fourth ability will let you imbue Heat. You can also form a mixture of element. You can form Viral by simply holding his first ability first, then holding his second ability after, or, to make it easier, you can both hold your first and second ability to form the viral element which you can inflict to enemies in your next ability cast. Take note that every time you cast an ability, the imbued element will dissipate, and you need to concoct again to use it with your next ability cast. The element you imbue will be added to the base element of the ability you cast, meaning, if you will cast your fourth ability, which has innate heat damage, and then you imbued radiation, you will inflict both heat and radiation to enemies. One last thing, all of his abilities have innate primary elements. The icons on top of your abilities also indicate the primary element of each ability. I know, right? Condition overload madness. But before we get into build details, let us first discuss how well this frame's abilities synergize with each other. So basically, his first ability Ophidian Bite will allow you to heal Lavos. The amount of heal depends on how much power strength you have in this frame, and also how many enemies you hit with the ability. It would be better if you build Lavos for high range if you want to use Ophidian Bite for survivability. His next ability is called Vile Rush, which lets you turn Lavos into a skater boy, dealing cold damage and slowing enemies hit by the vials in the process. The number of charges or the vials that you can discharge is affected also by range, and as well as the explosion radius. Also, it is worth noting that you can cast this ability while you are in midair. His next ability is called Transmutation Probe, and this is one of the best utility for Lavos. First of all, this ability lets you convert pickups into universal ones, meaning, health orbs can be turned energy orbs and vice versa, while ammo pickups can be turned into any ammunition. It's also a great ability since it allows us to proc Valence Block constantly, which gives us status immunity. Also, this is the ability that lets you shorten the cooldown of Lavos abilities. Every enemy that gets electrocuted by this ability will lower the cooldown of your other abilities. This means that you will need a lot of range for this to work very well in a real mission. Another thing that you should know is that lowering the cooldown of your abilities using Transmutation Probe has its limit, and you should watch out for Lavos abilities which has a duration. Vile Rush will not be a problem since duration only affects how long the vials or the cold effect stays in the field, but it will be a problem for his fourth ability, especially if you build Lavos with lots of duration. The fact is, you will need to wait for the whole duration that your fourth ability is active before you can cast a Transmutation Probe, or else, you won't get the effect of shortening the cooldown of your fourth ability. Also, take note that this ability has a cooldown timer, so think carefully when to cast this ability. Better than you do it once you already cast all of Lavos abilities. Before we proceed to the next ability, you should also know that you can stop the Transmutation Probe from advancing by simply pressing the ability again while it is traveling. And also, this ability can't go through obstacles. Sorry lads, no wall hacks for this ability. Okay, now let's talk about his ultimate ability called Catalyze. This is basically an area of effect attack that scales with range and strength mods. Range mods affect the maximum distance which the projectiles can travel, while ability strength will give a boost to the innate heat damage, and as well as the imbued elemental damage. While this ability has a good area of effect, you should consider the fact that it's affected by elevation. You can't hit enemies if you are elevated, but this ability can phase through all entities and obstacles, meaning Catalyze ability is a major wall hack for Lavos and it's not affected by that silly line of sight mechanic. To sum it up, his Ophidian Bite is more like a survivability skill, and good for applying toxin proc. His second ability is for mobility, crowd control, and applying cold damage. His third is a great utility that gives you status immunity and allows you to lower the cooldown of your abilities, while crowd controlling enemies that are hit by the electric damage. And his fourth ability is good for nuking. What are you saying, squad leader? You can't even kill higher level enemies just by using his fourth ability, or any of his abilities. Well, you are correct with that. If we see through the lines, Lavos don't have any abilities that can one-shot kill high-level targets. Basically, you will be using this frame for a condition overload setup, buffing your melee weapons with some damage madness. As you can see, imbuing elements, and as well as casting your abilities will inflict constant status to enemies, which you can use to boost your condition overload setup. But wait, you are missing one part of his Catalyze ability. If you paid attention earlier, then you might have noticed that the description of Catalyze says that each element afflicting an enemy will double the damage dealt by Catalyze. And obviously, we can easily do that knowing that every ability that we cast will inflict a certain element type. By the way, before we dive deeper into how to make Lavos even powerful, let me share first the build that I was using. So like I've said, in my opinion, Lavos needs a lot of range to make most of his abilities effective. Adding blind rage won't hurt the frame, since he doesn't have any energy pool, but I did add fleeting expertise to somehow increase the cooldown reduction of each ability per hit of transmutation probe, because I have this mod. I also added primed continuity so that Vile Rush icy trails will somehow stay to the ground for a longer period. 7 seconds may not be that long, but it's enough for me to keep recast the ability again using this build. The normal build variation for this mod will just have transient fortitude for the power strength buff, and streamline to increase the cooldown reduction bonus of transmutation probe. Now, it's worth noting that Lavos has 675 armor, which converts to 69% damage reduction. That will be enough for normal star chart missions, but if you are going with high level content, like the Steel Path hard mode, then you best ramp it up by using Arcane Guardian and adding the adaptation mod for survivability. The damage reduction paired with Ophidian Bite will be your main source of surviving high level content. Lastly, Arcane Eruption is very useful with Lavos. It seems that the universal pick will proc the knockdown effect of this arcane, making it a great crowd control utility for the Alchemist. Anyway, Operation Orphex Venom is live, and you can easily acquire these arcanes right now. Okay, we are far from over, so let's proceed to the next topic. I did mention earlier about Catalyze somehow being a good nuke ability, so let's discuss it here. Although the Lavos has the kit to imbue elements and administer them to enemies to ramp up the damage of Catalyze, it will take longer, and sometimes, it's better killing enemies affected by status with you melee condition overload setup. Also, Catalyze nuking build is not worth it, especially if you can't for status fast. Well, there's a solution to that, and it's the most obvious one, the viral Kuvanuka. Viral because we want to gain that bonus damage to health, and we equip it with heat so we can have a triple element in our Kuvanuka, helping Catalyze to gain more damage. If that's not enough, then you can pair your Kuvanuka with a melee weapon and add another element to it to further boost the damage of Catalyze. If you can put Arcane Anomaly in your operator, then the better, since it looks like Catalyze with Kuvanuka is better used in mid-range, and with enemies tightly grouped. But wait, there's more nuking fun that I will show you. To make your life easier, then administer the Helminth system to Lavos. I know I'm kind of dumb for saying that since Helminth system needs tons of resources, but if you somehow have the necessary things to subsume specific abilities to this frame, then why not try it? The best Helminth ability I have used so far is obviously Ensnare for grouping enemies. The question is, what ability did I sacrifice? For this test, I replaced Vile Rush since I can easily replace the crowd control effectiveness of this ability with Ensnare. I tuned this build obviously to make Catalyze nuking more viable. With a cast of Ensnare you group a large portion of the enemies in a room, then you inflict status using your Kuvanuka and a melee weapon, and hit them with a giant Catalyze bomb. You see, I don't recommend you using the Helminth system for Lavos, since if you like his special casting passive, the subsume ability can't be used in special casting, and combining elements, and its cooldown can't be lowered by transmutation probe. It's better not to use the Helminth abilities on this frame, since right now, Lavos is a perfect mixture of power and fun. I'm very pleased with this Warframe's design and mechanics, and yes, Sarin has to be dethroned when it comes to the top tier frame for applying lots of status. This is my first impression of Lavos and I really love this frame. Now feed him to the Helminth. I'm just kidding. Don't do what I just did. Only a madman would sacrifice an alchemist and create another monster. Get out of my workshop. I'm done teaching you the concoctions to make Lavos powerful. Thanks for watching. Squad leader signing off.
This is the future. Human error. Evolution. This is the future.